there is age discrimination now, whether we like it or not. There's age discrimination, and you're at a point in your life where your expenses are heavy, right? It's you've got kids in college, and you're writing those checks. And don't get me talking about college tuition. Hello, and welcome to the Hire Yourself podcast. We publish episodes twice a week about franchising and business. Each Monday, we'll release a 30-minute episode where we dive deep into a topic. Thursdays are our shorter, lighter episodes where we will discuss things like business resources or topics of personal growth. I am one of your hosts, Pete Gilfillan, and I'm joined with my business partner, Nat Truitt. And together we have every experience in business and franchise ownership. We have worked hard over the years to realize our dreams and control our own destinies. Our experience will help you become a better business owner and franchisee so that you can live life on your own terms. Well, Nat, I thought today what we would do is we talk about one of the things that are near and dear to me, and that's this risk of being a corporate executive at the age of 50. And as you know, I'm in my early 50s. I know you're not quite there yet to 50. I can't wait till you turn 50. But, as we take a look at, and you and I work with corporate executives in their 50s, every day, right? That's kind of our avatar, is work with people in their late 40s and 50s, exploring business opportunities. What we're seeing in the corporate America is unbelievable because there's a lot of risk associated being 50 or 50 plus and a corporate executive. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times it's almost like you hear people start hearing footsteps and they're kind of wondering, okay, am I going to have to relocate? Am I going to have to keep on doing this travel? Am I going to have a new boss? They just don't know really what's going on.
Yeah, and it's you've got your life pretty established. You've been living in a house for a while, and you got kids that are maybe going off to college and stuff like that. I mean, I think about my days when I was with Ford, and I remember being kind of a young executive, and these 50-year-olds would be kind of pushed out. They would be all of a sudden they'd hit their 28 or 29 years, and they'd give them enough time to basically retire with 30 years of service. And I thought those guys they look so young. I can't believe it. And now I find myself that age and I go, holy cow, there's no way I could retire now. My
Right.
wife would probably kick me out of the house. I would drive her crazy from that standpoint. But
Well, and you have all kinds of bills too. It's like you think that everything was taken care of, but these days a lot of us had kids a little bit older, so we've got tuition, and it seems like kids, they like to go to Starbucks with our credit card. It seems like it never ends.
yeah, absolutely. It just expenses get bigger and stuff like that. But the stats are pretty amazing when you take a look at it, because our perception is that you've got a target on your back. But the Urban Institute, in a 2018 study, said that more than 50 people that are 50 plus, they are at the highest risk of trouble with their career, and it's crazy. They say that more than half of workers that are 50 years old are forced out basically before they're ready to retire, which is
Yeah.
crazy, right? And we see it every day.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why a lot of people are coming to us. They're kind of in the back of their head, they're literally hearing those footsteps, and they're kind of like, I need to come up with a plan B. So whether that's like a semi-absentee manager run or something they can do full time, lots of guys are like in that boat.
But I think a lot of them, it catches them off guard. They're not prepared for it, right? And they literally they're at the peak of their career, and all of a sudden somebody walks in and says, "Hey, we got a new leadership team. We're going a new direction, or we're doing a merger and acquisition. And bottom line is that this time for you to go, right? We're giving you a pink slip or a package, whatever you want to call it. But the idea is crazy. Now, here's the thing of that. So 50% of corporate executives, they get thrown out earlier than they're ready, right? 1 out of 10, when they get a new job, replace their corporate income,
Yeah.
the level that they had before, or simply put, they become underemployed.
I totally believe that, because, I feel like the guys that I'm working with, a lot of times they're, looking at businesses, but they're also actively looking for jobs. And it does seem like trying to replace that income or kind of get back to where they're at, even with the corporate jobs they're interviewing for, seems to be very challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I worked with a guy, it was about a month ago, corporate executive, 27 years with the company, right? He's, call it 50 years old, and he's got two kids, a 20-year-old, 18-year-old. And they walk in and they basically say, "Hey, we're offering you a package. We're going a different direction." And he's got these tuition bills, he's got a mortgage. It's crazy from that standpoint what happens, right? And this idea of going back in the market. Now we're fortunate right now, right? We've got a good economy and it's easier to get a job. But we know somewhere down the line, as we've talked about before, we're going to have another recession. We're going to have another downturn. And that you're even more vulnerable as a corporate executive because once you're walked out the door, you're in your 50s and we're in a tighter economy. That's really tough.
Yeah. I like that concept of when you have your own business, sometimes you're taking one step backwards to take two steps forward, right? Because you might be, kind of there's some trade-offs when you start something, you're pouring money into it and all that. But the two steps forward is, fast forward a couple years, depending on what's going on at corporate or with the academy, you have the ability to kind of own your own company and own your own income versus just a paycheck. And most people don't fire themselves. So
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I think the idea is that it's never too early to start planning your exit or your safety plan. Right. And you don't want to get caught off guard when somebody walks in. You want to put yourself in a position where you have options if they walk in and do that. And I think to your point earlier, kind of that semi-absentee opportunity might be the way to do it. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the problems executives have in their 50s when it comes. And a lot of them, I think, get to the point where they're at the end of their career, right? I've hit the top of the organization as far as I'm going to go. I am maybe a little bored. I've been doing this for 27 years. Maybe it's got to the point where I'm just kind of run down and that kind of stuff. And I'm just trying to ride it out. I'm trying to make it for the next 3 years till I hit the retirement age or whatever it may be. Or I'm hoping I can make it from that standpoint. You probably hear that story all the time, right? With executives that are just trying to get to the end.
yeah, and I think sometimes it's we work with a lot of couples, and sometimes it's they're like, I'm going to do start my own business, and my wife or my husband's going to kind of keep on going with their job. But you can really get a sense that people are looking to make some changes because they're it's almost like job fatigue, like they've been doing this for so long, they're kind of ready for a new adventure and want to reinvent themselves at this stage of life.
Yeah, you get people that say, "Hey, Peter, I want a new challenge, right? I still have gas in the tank. I'm not ready to retire. I got to do something. I want to take my skills and go off and build something on my own." But it's scary for them, right? All they know is the corporate world from that standpoint, and so they just want to hold on. But if you can take that experience and you can build something on your own, and it's more challenging, it's more exciting, you're in control to the point you made earlier where nobody can walk you out as an
Yeah.
executive.
I actually, when you
Sure.
said that about the gas in the tank, I actually do hear that pretty consistently too. And I respect that, when somebody's like, I still got gas in the tank. And I like the fact, the other thing that I've been hearing a lot lately too is just people are burned out on politics and bureaucracy. So, when you have your own business, it's typically a pretty flat organization, which is kind of nice too, because, as an executive, you have the opportunity to build your team and really make a difference and service your customers. And it can be like so energizing, and less stressful. It's a different kind of stress, but
It is.
yeah, just being able to build your team, not have to deal with politics, all that stuff is so energizing.
I think when you have the opportunity to work for a company, big company, or any company, I guess, when I was at Ford, you get great training, right? And you gain great acumen and leadership skills and all that kind of stuff. And those are all things tied with your assets. You can go start your business and really kind of leverage what you have, both resources and experience and stuff like that. The other thing is I think about 50-year-olds, they really do 50 plus have a target on their back, right? Because in many cases, they're the older people in the organization, right? They're the ones that, you got, maybe they're working for younger people, younger executives. They're being managed by a 30-year-old and you're 55, right? That's becoming more and more common in today's world.
Yeah, and layoffs happen in good times and in bad times. I think the economy is always kind of reinventing itself. And we were just talking about Mini Cooper, and it's like they're having a hard time figuring out how to get their cars built. And over here is everything is so dynamic and changing. It's hard to know or predict what's the future holds.
Yeah, and when you've been a senior level executive for, basically 30 years, you've got a little bit more confidence, right? Because you're in a different stage of your career. And I think about like when I was at Ford, when you're in 20 or 30s, you are trying to kind of follow line, be the company person. When you become 50 or a little bit older, a little bit more mature, you've been around, you become more of a independent thinker. And sometimes in corporate world, independent thinking doesn't really go well. So,
Yeah. Sometimes they're
uh,
looking for the yes man, not just somebody
yeah.
that wants to change things.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think this idea is you take what you have and really kind of build from it from that standpoint. I think also when you look at it, these it's just easier to lay off somebody that has been around for 30 years opposed to somebody younger. They feel like, hey, listen, this person's just starting out their career and they're kind of the future of our organization. And that executive that's in their 50s, they're literally, kind of the dinosaur or the past of the corporation.
Yeah.
I see it all the time.
I think that, if you're getting walked to the door with a package, I think that's a great opportunity to, use that time to invest in yourself and start a business. So kind of, turning lemons into lemonade and, look and see what your options are and build something.
Yeah, it's kind of flipping it on them, right? So,
Exactly.
right, it's just you might as well take control and take all the business acumen they've given you over the years and that leadership experience, those opportunities, and take and leverage your resources and start your own business, or put it in a position where you have a business on the side, a semi-absentee franchise. You still always have to mind the business. There's no such thing as an absentee business, but this idea that if you can start the business on the side and put yourself in a position where you've got that secondary income or you diversified your assets and your income, you just got more options if you're one of the 50% that gets laid off or thrown out before you're ready. So I
Yeah.
think that's important.
I think when you have your own business, you kind of feel like you're in the game, right? Because you're operating your business on a day-to-day basis, but you're also like, it's interesting. Once you start a business, all of a sudden your network or your peer group starts to evolve a little bit too, and you're starting to surround yourself with more entrepreneurs, business owners, accountants and CPAs that are more small business oriented. And all of a sudden, you start seeing all kinds of opportunities. I call it deal flow. You start having deal flow. All of a sudden, you're like, okay, here's some opportunities in real estate. Here's some opportunities, to get in on Culvers, or all kinds of different opportunities start coming your way, which is really fun.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about being thrown out, right? When we talk about this idea that you're one of the 50% that gets pushed out of the company, you're at a real disadvantage because there is age discrimination now, whether we like it or not. There's age discrimination, and you're at a point in your life where your expenses are heavy, right? It's you've got kids in college and you're writing those checks, and don't get me talking about college tuition. It, with two kids in college, it's like every year you're writing a check that a couple checks that the price of that mini that you have there
Yeah,
or
drive it
more.
off a cliff, right?
Right, driving off a cliff. And so you're kind of at a disadvantage. You are going to face age discrimination. You are at kind of I think the peak of your expenditures, right? And you find yourself. So again, going back to, you take some of those assets that you have, and there's many different ways in which you can fund a business. You've got some equity in your house, you got some retirement dollars that instead of investing in stocks and bonds can invest in your business. So you don't have to have all cash, but you have to be willing to invest some of your capital to put yourself in a position where you're not exposed at that very critical time where your expenses are the highest and you're vulnerable from a standpoint of just age discrimination.
Yeah, I really like the idea of kind of diversifying your retirement portfolio, so you're not just in, stocks and mutual funds and all that. Have a percent of your portfolio that's actually a business. And if you build your business right, in 3 to 5 to 10 years, it can kind of, a lot of times it could be pretty manager run and generate some pretty nice passive income. And so then it's almost like you're kind of supercharging your retirement, because then you're having, income coming in. It's not super hard to work, it's not super hard at that point, and you're not like having to go clock in or punch in at corporate. So it's kind of the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I talk a little bit about retirement, right? And retirement, if you look up the definition of retirement, it's ceasing to work. Now, I think when I work with corporate executives, they say, Pete, I want to set up my future. I want to set up my retirement, but not ceasing to work. I want to do something I enjoy. I'm passionate about. I'm challenged. And I also have an income because I don't want to outlive my assets. And I think that's where it's going. So if you're a corporate executive in your 50s, you're best to take your resources, all your acumen, your leadership skills, and go put something in place for yourself to protect, to diversify from that standpoint so that you're in a much better position. And then retirement or your future is determined by you, not somebody coming in and saying, hey, here's a pink slip. We're done with you after giving 30 years of your life, which is just crazy.
Yeah. I was just talking to a guy that owns a Molly-Made residential cleaning business, and he actually started it when he was 54 years old. He's 70 now, has a really, substantial business. And it was kind of fun to talk to him because, he's kind of, retired, but he's like, I still go to the office every day. And, he has that business, they have like a fleet of cars. And he actually finds that that's fun. That's enjoyable for him, just kind of maintaining the fleet and, just having these things to keep you busy and occupied and you're making income. And I thought to myself, that's the most beautiful thing. Like that's, you're have purpose, you're providing jobs, you have something to do, it's enjoyable. I think I love that, kind of as a vision for, what retirement could be.
Yeah, I think it's having that ability to live life on your terms. And if you want to go take that trip, you can. You got a good team in place, but it is about putting in a position to do that. So, again, I think as we talk about being 50 plus in a corporate executive role, you have to start putting yourself in a position to protect yourself. And so, if you get anything out of the podcast, is get your stuff in order, put a plan in place where you are never at risk of being one of those people, 50% that gets pushed out in their 50s, and 1 out of 10 basically replace their corporate level income. So put yourself in a position to win and look at semi-absentee franchise ownership. It can be a great path.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hire Yourself podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, give us a rating, and leave a comment on iTunes or wherever you're listening to our podcast. Hire Yourself offers some great resources on our website at hireyourself.com. And if you would like more content regularly, follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. We look forward to you listening again to help you on your journey of living life on your own terms.